Hi, welcome to the Inspiring Change Show, the show where we introduce you to people you may or may not know already, whether it's celebrities or whether it's normal people. They're all normal. Acting is just what they do and just a big part of who they are. But the Inspiring Change Show is all about people who have overcome adversity, taken tenacity, and turned it into opportunity. And I'm Shannon Murray. I'm your host. And I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in and watching us for the next 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. You know, we can give it a guideline, but honestly, this show is not scripted. So when I have my guests, we just have a one-on-one conversation and just what is it that they want to talk about? So my next guest, oh my God, I was telling him before the show, I can just look at him and he makes me laugh. I don't know if that's a good thing or it's a bad thing, but he's a very, very, very dear friend of mine. He is a comedian, he is an actor, he's an entertainer, and his name is Frank Spadone. So please welcome my guest, Frank.
Hey, Shannon, how are you?
Buddy, I'm so excited to have you. Thanks for saying yes.
Oh, you know what? How could I say no? This is amazing.
I know. I have that little persuasive nature. No, all I did was ask. All I did was ask. You were like, I'm in.
For sure. How could I not?
Buddy. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, for anybody who doesn't know about Frank, I don't know how you don't, but I want you to go to frankspadone.com and I want you to check out his information, go to his Instagram, all his socials, because he is one of the most funniest dudes I know. But not only that, is you are so giving and so warm and just so kind. And, you know, I tune into your show on Instagram every once in a while with you and Ange. And, you know, I'm glad that you said yes, because now you and I can have a one-on-one, and I promise not to interrupt you.
Yeah, I know you can. I'm used to it. If you've watched the show when I do that live on Mondays with my good buddy Angelo, who's another great guy. Yeah, he doesn't let me get a word in, you know.
Shall I throw in Malacca every once in a while? So,
yeah,
you feel like
I often say, I don't know who lets me speak less, my wife or him. That's why I do stand up, so I can, finish my sentences up there.
Right. So what I love about you and your show and just who you are is, I'm all about adversity and diversity and all those different things. And most importantly, with immigration and all those different things. And you are, your Italian heritage is a huge part of who you are. Even your presentation on stage, the way you mimic your dad and you mimic your, oh my God, again, I'm in tears. I don't have a clip of it today, but the McDonald's drive-through that you do with your dad,
They say, comedy equals tragedy plus time. And, some things, they're funny now, but they were almost like, oh my God, he's going to go through the drive-through. What's he going to say? And what am I going to end up getting, that they're going to misunderstand? And misunderstandings are always the huge thing in comedy. Three's Company, which I loved growing up. I loved Jack when he played he was such a character up there on Three's. I know now I'm dating myself how old I am, but a lot of that show was based on misunderstanding. But the funny thing about being Italian, background, I'm born in Canada. This isn't a normal job as much as Italy's got this beautiful culture of art and being artists and actors and plays, and they do not encourage it with the kids. Like, if I listened to my dad, I'd be driving the bus right now and making sure I got a pension, and this is how much you make every week. So that was tough about getting into this job with such traditional parents that like came from nothing, but like just getting a regular job was so important. And it was like, they looked at me as, honestly, I think they looked at me as not a failure, but they were like so worried. Like, what's this guy doing? Until they saw me on the local Italian channel, which was, like I got on the Academy Awards or something for them. So, but yeah, that's the tough thing. And they don't really encourage, it's not encouraged. It's not encouraged, that this kind of job or lifestyle, not at all.
It's so interesting that you say that because I don't know if it's a heritage thing because, you know, I come from African Canadian descent, Jamaican descent, if
Mhm.
you will, as well, and mixed. And my dad said the same thing because in my other life, I was a dance choreographer.
Mm,
So, you know, I'd be on stage and performing, and, you know, it's a lot of competition, it's a lot of casting calls. It's very similar to acting or, you know, what you're doing on the comedy set. And same thing, my dad was always, no, you got to have a really good paying job. You got to be Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. You got to have a pension. I mean, here I am at 18 years old being counseled on or educated on where I need to be when I'm getting ready to retire.
yeah.
I'm like, oh my God.
You know, and this is the crazy thing because, you know, your whole life, you know, on the other hand, you're being told, go out there, be ambitious, don't let anything stop you. But you know, you got to make sure you get paid every week, and you have a pension, and that you have benefits, and it's like, you know what? I don't know if I can. Maybe I'm looking back and I'm like, maybe I have like ADHD. Like, you know, they didn't look for that kind of stuff. I was always good in school. I was decent. I wouldn't say I was. I mean, I made the honor roll a bunch of times, but I wasn't like the top scholars. But it's, I just needed to. I was always a drawer. I was always a drawer. Then I got into photography. I don't look like an artsy guy, but I was in the arts, and like you say, the parents just like they bragged about it when I drew a nice picture, but that's not a way to make money, right? And it was tough. If you want to talk about adversity, that was, and then throw in a bunch of anxiety, you know, our culture, I don't know what it is, you know, maybe that's why Italians yell so much. We're always so worried and about anything. And comedy was just not a thing that they understood. And you know, it was tough because, you know, they saw, oh, there's university, there's this, that, like, I didn't grow up with a lot of extracurricular either. I was a kid that grabbed his hockey stick that my dad made the first few years. Honestly, he was a carpenter. My dad used to compare himself to Jesus, and he thought he was better. He said, you know, I came to Italy, and when I was 25 with the two kids, I put my cross on my back when I was 25, and Jesus was 33. So he would brag about that.
He's a competition with Jesus.
Yeah, you know, it is. It is. My dad comparing himself to the man. Unless it's a woman, I don't know. Right.
Right.
He's like, we got to watch out these days what we say. And that's another hard thing about comedy, which we could touch on later. It's like now it's so hard. And you know me, I'm not I don't want to offend people when I do comedy, but you have to push limits in this business. And just again, coming from that culture, I was pushing it. Now I'm being asked to look at things in a different way. That's what comics do. We bring things to the forefront. It's not an easy business, you know.
Let's get back to that for sure. I definitely want to touch on that for sure. But let's wind it back a little bit.
Sure.
So you talk about, because again, I like to talk about mental health.
Yeah.
And, you know, because I feel the more we talk about it, the more we normalize it and let people realize it's not a thing. It is way more than just a hashtag in a day.
Absolutely.
It's every single day. So, you know, you are a high performer in terms of things coming naturally in your grades, right? But not the scholar, as you said. So how did you discover the ADHD? Did you go for testing? And the other thing is there's this very fine line of all the comedians that I get to meet, how conflicted you are backstage with having some sort of anxiety or something, and then going on stage and then friggin' knocking it out of the park. So those two things, and then why comedy, or how did you discover it?
So comedy was more, okay, let's start with that. I was in the photography business. Another job, my parents were like, what are you going to do? Shoot weddings your whole life? What about when you have your own family? You're not going to be home on a week. Like, everything was wrong. And maybe that's why I have anxiety or anything that I have. I was working a lot, and you know, I like to have fun when I work, and I was, you know, I went to Humber learned learned how to be a photographer and at least a photographer assistant in the beginning. I had to learn the business side and worked with some great photographers in Toronto, fashion, shooting cars, shooting catalog, shooting everything, products. And the same thing kept coming up. Frank, you know what, man? Like, you know, we love you here. You know, I was an assistant. You're doing your job, but like you're great to be with. I realized I was getting hired. Some people flat out told me, we just wanted you on the job because we just wanted to have a good time. And that's one thing I learned about photography, or what photography taught me, is that no matter what job you do, people got to like you, and people got to enjoy being around you. You could be the best photographer in the world, but if you're a diva and it's all about you, and you make the photo shoot all about you, and you're treating people bad, like a director who treats someone badly, or, you know, you don't want to be around that person. You don't want to be around that negative energy. And some people, you know, I guess, oh, well, he's the best, we need him. That happens when you're maybe the absolute best, but I think I'm not that kind of, I don't like treating people. I like, you know, now I was an assistant, but I always said, if I'm a photographer, I'm going to treat people well. I don't like making people feel bad. But being on set, shooting, people would come around me. Again, I was imitating my parents. They'd say, Frank, what'd you do last night? I'm like, I went home and my mom made this. And then they're like, oh, you still live with your parents? I'm like, yeah, I'm not allowed to leave till I'm married. And then my mom said, you know, you better finish. Don't go on the street, the car going to kill you. I would say things. And then they're like, why don't you do it on stage? I'm like, nah, who's going to want to? That's just my family. No one's going to want to listen to that stuff. And again, not having the confidence to realize, or, you know, if my parents constantly saying, you should get a regular job, 9 to 5, like you said, Monday to Friday. I'm like, nah, that's not going to work for me. That's for, you know, people who have real talents. And but then there was that part of me that's like, no, I need to try, you know. And I met an art director that was into comedy, and they said, you know, Frank, so you want to try it out? Here's the number. And I tried it. I did it was the Laugh Resort. It was March 17. What year was it? Don't want to tell. And here I am. Like, I just, once you do it.
Approximately how many years ago have you been in it?
1997 when I jumped up the first time. And, you know, you got to get out there, and it's like a real estate agent, right? You got to get clients, you got to meet people, and you got to meet people who run other shows. Like, the beginning's tough, you know. And when you do well and people hear about you, hey, I have a show, do you want to come do it? Then that starts. But the beginning's tough, you know. And then you get comfortable, right? Then there's that whole thing. Talk about, like, now we're talking about the brain now. You get comfortable on certain stages, and you're like, I feel great. And then someone asks you to do another stage or another town. Are they going to understand me? You know, or you start playing with things in your head. And like you said, you want to see a comic deal with mental, whatever's going on inside that brain before a show, because of the anxiety, our little rituals that we believe in. Sometimes the real show is backstage before the show. And you've had the pleasure of seeing so many comics at our wackiest when we're dealing with our anxiety. And Angelo makes fun of me, my buddy. He's like, Frank, I get you before. He goes, you're always worried. And then you go out there, like you said, and you do a great job. But, you know, you always worry that it's not going to be, you know, you're going to have that one night. And comics were so in our head, like a lot of people probably. We just want to do a great job.
I think it's more challenging for you guys, because for us normal everyday people, like, for example, if I'm doing a show or something like that, I can always stop, record it, or edit post-production.
True.
But you guys are live.
Yeah.
And your whole, you feed off of that energy, which is why I can only imagine we're going to talk about the pandemic itself and how it shut the entertainment industry down without. So here you guys are, you're artists, and, you know, you feed off of that energy that you get from writing your jokes and, you know, your improv and everything from the fans. I get that.
Yeah.
So I think you guys have more pressure. So I understand why you would have that.
Yeah. And, you know, yeah, because it's instant, right? Like, you know, it's amazing. Comics worry more, and maybe like anybody that, you know, maybe has a presentation to do at work, or you gotta, you know, present anything to a client. Once we go, the worry is before, and then we're preparing, and some of us look at our notes the whole time. Some people don't want to look at their notes. They need to joke. They need to talk the whole time backstage. And you get, you know, I sometimes just like to be quiet and stare at my piece of paper backstage, unless you know the people. And, you know, having friends on shows is always great because you calm each other down. Yeah, it's a tough, yeah, it's crazy. Like
but I know not to talk to you beforehand. Like when we're all backstage and
yeah.
I see you in that.
I'm in my head for sure.
Yeah.
I'm kind of visualizing. That's how I've always been. And it's not like I don't want it to. I love talking to people, but yeah. And I don't know, like, that's my question to you. Do you feel like you can't approach me just before the show, or is that like comics in general?
No, I respect the process.
Yeah.
Because I totally understand where it is, again, because you guys are going through your notes, and because you're feeding off of I mean, this is your livelihood. It's not only what you do and what you love, it is also your livelihood. And the joke for you is in your head, hoping that you know your audience well, or if you're opening up for somebody else whose audience, it doesn't matter. We don't need to name names, anyone, you know, it's the joke has to land for you. And then that is your next segue. You know, of course, I don't need to speak the choir to you because you're the comedian, but for anybody else who may not understand the process, because I've witnessed it, it's got to land. And then I've seen you guys backstage fret over, you guys have a standing ovation, and then you guys can fret over the one that you thought would land and it didn't. And you're like, shit, I got to rewind it. I got to rewrite that, or I don't know.
Or that one person who wasn't laughing in the third row. We talk about it all the time, right? It's like no, I'm glad you described it. I'll tell you why, because we take it for granted as comics and performers. You as a person who's been backstage and friends with comics and being involved, to explain that's great, because I probably maybe wouldn't have explained it that way. So it's a great way to describe it to people. It really is like that. We'll have a great show and people are like, that was great. I'm like, there was that, there was this. And we're always doing that. And you know, people say, oh, look, aren't these the, you know, like they make everybody else laugh. Their life must be fantastic. It's like, you know, we're so in our head, and, you know, great comics observe what's going on in the world. And then sometimes we got to take stuff that isn't great that's happening in the world and present it as something funny to everybody else. Like, you know, especially those guys that do politics, you know, and joke about politics, they're taking some serious subjects and trying to make it funny. But yeah, we're so in our head. I know you asked me about the ADHD. I don't know if I didn't get tested or anything. I'm not officially diagnosed. What's that?
Anxiety is what I meant to say. Sorry about that.
If I have ADHD, which I think, I don't know if it's today with phones and we can't focus, you know, like even clips. It's like if they're longer than a minute or 30 seconds, we're like, you know, scrolling. But it's definitely anxiety. Everything's anxiety driven, I think, with a lot of us comics, or myself, speaking for myself. And I think that's why but then again, it's helped me deal with other things in life. Like sometimes, you know, my wife or family members, they're so nervous about something and they're like, Frank, you're so relaxed. I'm like, I've been in this situation so many times, I guess, you know, like worrying about stuff, and maybe I'm great at hiding it. I don't know. Like we have to do that on stage. That definitely when comics are walking on stage, like, you know, when you see them on their big shows, you know, we pretty much have the set up for ourselves. Like we kind of know what we're going to talk about, but sometimes we're not sure how we're going to start the show and how we're going to address the audience. And man, I'm sure if you put probes on our heads just before the show or walking on stage, like our brains are probably going crazy. And it's a crazy thing. And now add what happened with, you know, not being able to perform for a while when you know, we're talking about the pandemic time, you know, and then we're doing trying Zoom shows. Like, I mean, this interviews work fantastic, but if you're doing a show, I sometimes I have people like, we're going to shut off the people's response in case they, you know, say something while you're telling your jokes. And that was happening, definitely. Like, you know, I'd be doing a show for a school and their kids, and the parents were at home and they're yelling at their kid, not realizing I could hear it. The connection's not there with people. That's what we missed. Like, there, you could watch, people love watching comedy, you know, on their TV now, on their smart TVs and all the apps that they have. But there's nothing like watching it live, and you know that there's definitely a connection that happens. And if I'm not on stage in a while, and that's what was tough about the pandemic, when there was a few months I hadn't hit the stage, and I'll tell you, I was depressed. Comedy's therapy for me. And I was angry. My wife was like, "You're so edgy and angry." I'm like, I just, and maybe that's everybody, you know, you couldn't go to the gym, but I love going out there and telling stories and having people listen. And we love making people laugh. And maybe for some people it's great for the ego, you know, but I think people who really love comedy, the artists who like to create the stories, we're like doctors. We love to make people, if we've made someone's world better, we feel great. You know, what better thing in the world? Like, yeah, you can have money, but if you can create joy, there's so much crap shit. Am I allowed to say?
Yep, you can say.
Shit?
Yep. No,
there's so much shit in the world. Skatas and merda, whatever you want to call it. There's
I mean, I said Nalak at the beginning of the show, so yeah.
Yeah, there's so much, like, to have that talent and not use it. Because there have been many times while I've been working that I quit. I almost quit a few times. I wanted to pack it in. You know, the pressures of the failures too. I feel like I'm not funny anymore. Like, you know, maybe I'm trying new jokes and it's not working. It's I could have quit so many times along the way. And just as I was about to quit, something great happened that made me say, no, you know what? I'm good at this and I'm meant to do this. I feel like our creator, whoever it is, whatever you believe in, if I wasn't doing this, would be pissed at me for not using what he gave me.
I'm so glad that you recognize that, you know, because I think that happens for a lot of us, that there are so many glaring signs, and whether we're influenced by our parents or a mentor or someone we really know, love, respect, and admire, and they're telling us that, you know, we should be doing something because of course they have their best, like our best interest to their heart. Right. Yeah. So you respect your parents tremendously. So I can only imagine you going, you know what, Ma, yes, I made it on, you know, the show, look at me. And then you're like, sorry, I'm not going to go through to be a doctor or a construction or whatever it is. No. And I'm going to be a comedian. So what do you tell your immigrant? How do you have that conversation with your immigrant parents from Italy?
You know, what's funny? You almost don't. Like, you just, you know, we were never that family. Like, they told me like what they thought at the dinner table and stuff, but I never said, this is what I'm going to do. I just kept doing it. And then eventually they just realized, I think they trusted me in the end, you know, like, you know, whether it was photography or comedy, I'd be in the same situation business-wise. I'd be an entrepreneur. I wouldn't get paid until I had jobs. Maybe there's more opportunities for a photographer, but I don't know, you know, things are changing in that business too with digital. You know, there's art directors that don't even use photographers anymore. I know a ton of guys I went to school with where they had to pivot. They had to either get into the digital retouching or something else, or, you know, unless you're in then weddings, you know, weddings, you need a photographer, but not all my friends wanted to be wedding photographers. I'm funny thing, they probably wouldn't have realized that I would have been in the same situation chasing jobs. Now comedy's way harder, but I was determined, you know. If I've inspired people to kind of chase their dreams in some way, and I'm no like super huge comedian as far as some of the superstars guy, you know, the big stars you see. I've done well. I'm, you know, maybe I'm not.
You're being humble, but yes.
Yeah, I'm not giving myself enough credit. Maybe.
No, you're not giving yourself enough credit. But anyway.
But honestly, like, if you could make a living doing something you love, then it's amazing. And even if I couldn't sustain a living, you know, believe me, even during the bad times, I was like, maybe I should get back into photography, even if it means shooting homes that people want to sell for real estate agents. I've thought of that for sure. Can I do this till I'm, you know, 70, 65, 60, 80?
But would you enjoy it? I mean, like, honestly, yes, you keep referring to real estate agent because I don't plug that that's what I do. It's, I've been doing it for 20 years. I love it. It's who I am. It's part of who I am. I love it, but it's not who I am. Right.
Exactly.
Like,
right.
So you got to do what you love.
Yeah. And even if I was in another job or had to pivot just for cash flow, I think this is something I'll do. I told my wife, she's like, are you going to retire when I go, I think I'll always be the comic. If I could be that old man up there still making people laugh, I'll do it as long as I can travel and, you know, as long as I'm not physically able to, is what I mean. Right. Like, that's why I try to keep myself fit.
Right.
That's another story. And that helps with anxiety too. That's, I think, another reason why I work out. People think, oh, you know, Frank, you've always worked out. I'm like, man, it just calms me down. You know, I don't want people to think I'm like super anxious of a person where I can't do things, but
no. And that's the thing, right? Like, when we're talking about mental health, it can be any range. It doesn't really matter of any severity, and it doesn't lessen it anymore than whatever is anyone feeling. That's really, really important. You know, it doesn't have to be the Howie Mandels of the world. I'm just going to throw his name because he's, you know, the one with the one with the Bell Let's Talk stuff, and really started opening up that conversation. So it doesn't really matter how severe it is. If you suffer it, you suffer it, right? And it's life-threatening or it's obstacle. It's stopping you from whatever.
Yeah. And, you know, and you tell yourself so many times in a day, like, should I be doing this? And am I still doing the right thing? You know, it's tough because you don't have a boss telling you what to do when you do this job. You know, you really got to be self-motivating. And sometimes you don't have the energy to self-motivate and then do the job as well. You know, you got to write, you gotta, you know, there's a lot of free stuff too. I got to write and go downtown and drive half an hour and try new jokes out. I mean, that's the fun part, but you know, and then life gets difficult. You want to have kids. Oh, well, my wife owns a dance school, so she's busy at night. I married someone who the sex schedules don't complement each other. Like where I got to go out. Well, what do you mean? I got to go do a set. And it's the challenges. You could say no so many times. And I'll tell you, I've driven downtown to do a set and then it doesn't go well. Like, I tried some new stuff and I wasn't into it. Maybe I didn't look at my notes enough, or was it the crowd? Or you don't like to blame the crowd, but sometimes you could tell when you enter a room. Comics and people who do shows can feel when there's energy and when there's not, and you know, like, but then
and not only that is you just said something very important that came to mind. Excuse me, I'm having an Ange moment for interrupting.
No,
it's you gotta take that hour to go to a show, to do something, and your lovely, amazing wife, who I love and adore as well, has got something. Meanwhile, you got to coordinate the kids. So, you know, you got to deliver, you got to be on, you got to do your thing, commute back, and then go pick up Jimmy and Johnny from whatever sports or whatever school or friend's
Or
house
from
or whatever,
grandma,
and
you know.
and do normal stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's, yeah, I can imagine. And then add travel to US or a
Yeah.
tour or whatever on top
Yeah.
of that. Like,
And that's,
how?
I know, and there's so many reasons to say no, you know. There's so many reasons to take the easy route a lot of times. No one likes to get uncomfortable, but there's such reward when you are, like, I've done it enough times, but still there's still times I'm like, oh no, it's not going to work. It's not, it's, I just forget it. I shouldn't do it. And there's so many times to say that. And believe me, like, being a comic, and there's so much failure in what we do. You know, even a comic slash actor, you know, I've auditioned for so many things that I didn't get, and you could dwell on it and say, and then you see it on TV sometimes. Oh, I auditioned for that commercial. That could have been me. Why wasn't it me? You could, but you just learn. You learn to just say, hey, you know what? It can't be all of us. And then I can't be in every commercial. But you know, I have gotten some, which has been great. And you just gotta. There's so much. Like, you could quit so many times, and I'm just, you know, I guess I gotta pat myself on the back for sticking it out at least this long. You know,
Oh my gosh, yes. So, what would you tell an aspiring comedian? I'm thinking back to, I did some acting classes and I did some production and all different things through Second City. And I met a lot of amazing people, and they were aspiring comedians.
Yeah.
And there was one in particular who stood out to me, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I would love to introduce him to the people that I know, but I didn't really know. He seemed very conflicted. So I'm like, I sense a theme. You're going to be great.
Yeah. Then he's already halfway there. He's
Yeah.
a comedian.
What would you tell someone watching that's maybe wanting to be an aspiring actor or comedian?
You know, just before life gets too crazy, you know, I started comedy a little later, but if, you know, just go out there and do it. Like, you just got to get on stage, and you can't, even though I still do it sometimes, not as much as before, obviously, you're gonna worry, but that's part of it. And you're gonna, you know, don't succumb to the fear or the anxiety, and just do it. Observe what's going on in your life. When you're a comedian, it doesn't mean you got to be the funniest guy, you know, when you're out. I'm talking about off stage. You observe what's happening. This is real life. That's where I've been lucky at the same time. As much as it's made being a comedian harder as far as travel and getting out there, you have to live life to talk about it. You know, comics talk about what's happening in their lives. So pay attention to what's happening in your life. I thought of something the other day. I'm like, why didn't I think of this? It's been happening in front of my face for the last 3 years. Well, since I got married, really, but just especially lately. And I'm like, how can I have not seen it? It's right there. But that's the great thing. Like, you have these great, I don't want to say like, oh, there's so much failure and there's all this anxiety. There's so many great moments too. And that's what you have to focus on. And, you know, don't quit. If I'm going to tell a young person, don't quit because you have one bad set. If you love it, keep doing it. Listen, observe what's happening, and just live on the, I took a course once and they said, live on the skinny branches, which means being a comic isn't about being comfortable all the time. You got to really get uncomfortable, get on stages that you're intimidated by. You know, I've done Just for Laughs in Montreal, and I remember the first time I did it, I was so scared, but I still did it. You're up against comics that you recognize on TV, and not that you're up against it. You're really doing a show together. Comedy's a lot like golf, you know, like, it's all about you and your performance. You're going to compare yourself to other people and other people's results, but you just gotta, as a swimmer, stay in your lane and just, so there's golf and swimming that you have to think about when you're a comic. You gotta, it's funny, you talk about mental health. Comedy's a lot about here, and just live on the skinny branches, do
I
what makes you
disagree.
comfortable.
I
What's that?
disagree. I
Okay.
disagree.
Okay.
It's
In what way?
here
Oh, yes.
and it's here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. There's definitely here.
Yeah.
Definitely here because, you know, the good comics, they have it in here. It all depends what you're into. You know, there's comics who just want to get up there and, you know, yeah, they might make people laugh, but it's more about the fame. Then there's people who enjoy the art of it. And I feel like that's me. I enjoy the art. I enjoy the creation of writing these things that are me. Like, I don't know if I could write for anybody else. I know what works for me. Yeah, I don't know.
I love that. No discredit to anybody else, you know, and that's why I wanted to hear from you. What would you tell an aspiring comedian? Because, you know, it's so important to keep going.
Yeah.
You know, don't worry if somebody else is like, find your niche, find your niche. What is it
for sure. No,
what,
yeah.
like, what do you enjoy? It's the same thing with my profession. You know, how many are there of us? And I found my way that I'm comfortable with, that, you know, people want to work with who they know, love, and trust and respect.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right. It's what you know, but it's who you know. And those, you know, those things just, they are all encompassing, which is why this show is so great, because I can have those people who are influential in whatever businesses they are, but in effect, we're all the same.
For sure. For sure. We all go through this. It doesn't matter what we do. We all go through the same thing. And I agree with you there with the heart thing. I didn't think about that. And that's what I would tell an aspiring comic. If you love it and you still love it, even if when you have bad times and you want to quit, but you're like, no, I still love doing it. I say when you have a bad set, try to do another stage as soon as you can somewhere else, because you could do the exact same set and have a different reaction and you'll feel better about yourself. But yeah, everything we do, even if it's not our number one choice, what we do in life, you still got to do it with some love and passion in there. You know, there's got to be some passion in there for it. And, and it'll always work out, I think. You know,
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are people afraid to be your friend? That you may write about them or the situation or something that happens?
Yeah, I have people sometimes saying, okay, you know, whatever's happening, they'll talk about this on stage. And I'm like, yeah. And even if I wouldn't say they're afraid to be my friend, because I think people love being my friend.
Well, I do, but I can't speak for everybody else. So.
Yeah, I'm always anonymous. Like, I don't, even in my jokes, like, yeah, maybe I'll say it's my wife or something, but I'll hide it if it's about, sometimes we take situations that happen to other people and we'll say it happened to us or a friend, but not say who that person is, maybe, or try to change it to kind of protect people. Yeah, no, I don't
embellish.
So.
You embellish.
We embellish. We exaggerate. We take stuff that happens and then add things that we think might be funny and embellish and exaggerate things. You know, if anyone wasn't my friend because they were afraid, they haven't told me, because I wouldn't know. Yeah, it's not like, hey, I'm not your friend because you're gonna make fun of me. I think they would just stay away. I think people feel comfortable enough. I mean, my parents, my dad told me once, when I first started comedy, stop and talk about me. People are going to think I'm stupid. And then I said, okay, what do you want me to say? He goes, tell him it's your friend. He's told me that. And I said, okay. So my friend was really strict with me growing up. Like I just inserted friend where dad would be, and people still understood it as dad. So I made a joke out of it, actually. Which was funny. Yeah, it's, you know, it's, and then you have people who want to be your friend because you are the comic. And then they're like, I thought you were going to be always fun to hang out with. I'm like, no, I'm like everybody else. You know, I have bad moments. I have things I got to deal with. I'm not always happy.
So we've talked about, some challenges through the pandemic, and coming out of the other side of it. But I can only imagine the challenges because your wife was, in dancing, and it's like everything was totally shut down.
Yeah.
So, you talk about writing and the adversity and the challenges of that. So as much as I don't like to use the word pivot, I know it's still
Yeah.
a good word,
Yeah.
because from that you had to, in a way, reinvent yourself, right? Did you have to
Yeah. And
focus more on video and those different things, which is going to be a great segue to what I have coming up next to show?
Yeah, I had to concentrate on stuff that I didn't necessarily want to concentrate 100% on, but I knew I always had to do more of it because it's the world we live in, and that's what's made comedy so challenging now, especially for live stand-up people, is that now if someone has an idea, they could shoot it on their phone or talk about it on their phone, and it's there right away. Where you know stand-up's a different animal. Like you go up there, you gotta like you say, it's live, so you want to get the timing right. You can't erase it and re-record it, or edit the video and put sound effects. We got to do all that with what we have here, this mug, and what I say. But yeah, I had to learn to do more. It was tough though, because there were some ideas here. This was the tough thing about not being able to work, was sometimes you have an idea and you want to try it right away, and you didn't have the stage to do it because things were shut. And now the inspiration is gone. So people are like, oh, you must have a lot of material because you were stuck at home. Yeah, like there were things I thought of and I wrote down, but they're almost gone now. Maybe I have to look at it again to get re-inspired. But you got to get on stage. Like people are. I'm doing it now. I'm doing it now where I'm trying to get this new stuff out. The stage is such a big thing. But thank God for social media and those things, because yeah, I had to concentrate on putting out some funny clips, or looking at some of my repertoire of stuff that I was willing to let out into the World Wide Web, and let people see it. And yeah, that's what.
So I do have a clip to show, but I just kind of want to touch on something very important that you said, and it's what we said at the beginning of the show. And that is how you're, in a way, being restricted in what you can say and what you do because of what influences you. So I can only imagine, like, how can you even possibly be creative in that? I mean, I thought about you guys so often, knowing how conflicted you must have been, because it was the same headline every single day. And there's no humor in that, really. And you got to figure out the way. Then the challenges of what you're experiencing personally. You're always on the road. So there's that wonderful balance between you and your partner. And you've kind of got your, everything is like an ebb and flow, how it kind of works. You've got your routine and schedule. Then everything is full stop. You got to be with each other 24/7 with your children. Your children can't go to school. Then you got to do online school. Which I remember the challenges of that, because we had to face that as well. The depression and the energy that we're dealing with our own children, because I know my children felt the same way. How, oh my God, I know that's like a lot to unpack.
Yeah, I thought I had an answer, and then it was tough. It's what was the beginning? I'm trying to remember what you said.
Well, sorry. So really the context was how we started at the beginning of, there was no material really to write.
Yeah.
And then, as we're talking about headlines throughout the world of what was unpacking, and then you as comedians, you're being filtered in a way, because and whether it's old material being brought up that when you were first coming out, where it wasn't really this political correctness.
Yeah.
I feel like you're strong-armed in a way of your creativity, because you don't want to upset that one person to be that ripple effect in the way of political correctness, but yet you're also being filtered, like you're like restricted. Like how do you do that? How do you find that balance.
You got to reach a point where as long as you're comfortable with it, you got to just go for it. And, you know, I know we could all look back at some of our jokes or material when we first started, or even 15 years ago, and say, oh, I don't know, even know if that would fly nowadays. You know, I have a joke about talking about my wife being controlling, and there's a thing about how I grew up with sisters, and I noticed that women did this, and I'm like, man, I'm almost afraid to say that now, because I don't want to say, well, women did this. Like, you know, I grew up with sisters who, and I'll say it now, so I'll say it now, that played with dolls. And I thought it was funny because I'm like, you know, they were used to controlling the scenarios. You know, when you watch them play, we're going here, now we're going there. And even when I played with them, okay, this is what you're going to do, Frank. And I found that that I kind of replaced my wife's doll if she played with dolls, right? Like, you know, just dressing me and telling me where to go and what to do, and her being a choreographer, constantly telling me where to go and how to do it.
See, I'm a feminist. I'm not offended by that at all. You know what I mean? Like, I get it.
Yeah. And that's really just the joke. I'm not saying all women should be playing with dolls. And no, I'm just saying when I grew up, my sisters did role play with the dolls and stuff. And maybe they're used to being that way. But then I turn it around and say, thank God, because I can't make a decision. I'm so bad. And thank God she is buying my clothes and dressing me, because I look horrible.
You know, that's honestly, that's great, because then now you can just kind of eliminate that thought. It's kind of like Zuckerberg, doesn't he always wear like the same color of pants and jeans or whatever? So, you know, that takes away from you needing to think about it and focus on your fine-ass creative self. So there you go.
For sure.
Great job, Natalie.
She's doing a great job. I don't know how she puts up with me. You know, but then going back is, yeah, it was tough. What was so inspiring? We were hearing the same stuff in the news for a long time. And although we were in situations that you can kind of make fun of, a lot of comics were kind of talking about the same things too, like being stuck at home and, you know, homeschooling your kids. And you really had to, and then at the same time, let's not offend anybody. But I think people have forgotten what comedy's all about. Comedy is offensive. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. Some comics made a career of being offensive comedians. Now, I'm not saying don't be sensitive to people or whatever, but comedy is crossing the line with a lot of situations, I think. And as long as it's done right, I think you can cross the line at times. We like to push, you know, say the things that people thought but never said. I'm not so much that comic, but I'll tell you, I have a few friends in the business that have that's what they do. They want to get that reaction from people. Oh my God, I can't believe he said that. You know, Jim Jeffries, the things he's done. He's a good friend of Angelo's. Man, there's so many that's what they do, you know.
But you have that following from that, right? And what I love about the comedy aspect is pick and choose who you know and love, and then you have your followers. Like, you will have your undying followers, and it's relatable. Yeah. Like, I can think of that friend. Like, I'm going to go back to your dad at McDonald's, like that clip that you have, and people just go to his website, frankspadone.com. Oh my gosh. I like, again, I'm in tears. Like, you have your dad down to a T, and I can just picture it.
And I could honestly, and people think I really sound like him. Like, when relatives do call and I say, hey, hello, ciao, and I say my 3 words in Italian, they're like, wow, you really sound like your dad. But that's what inspired me to do comedy, to talk about my life. And I'm like I said, I didn't think anyone would relate. And then people who aren't even Italian, that they're just, yeah, my dad was Portuguese, or, you know, we did the same thing. That was awesome. But yeah, you know, just because, and let me give the advice, some advice to people out there who watch comedy. Shannon said it. You're not going to like everything. You know, there are people who do dark comedy, and that's what they love to watch. They love watching that type of comedy, and that comedian will have that following. That's his niche. We can't all be the same comedians. So don't be hating. Focus on who you like. And this goes with music and TV shows and movies. You're going to love some stuff. You're not going to like it. You might even hate, but you don't have to You don't have to text the person or, sorry, comment on his Instagram post and tell them how horrible they are, because what's horrible to you is great for someone else. So, and this is what's frustrating about doing this business and probably other businesses, is people today, they just feel so entitled to tell you how much they hate you. And if we could just think, go to the person who you love and tell them how much you love them without having to, because I'll tell you, even the darkest comic who you think is so tough and looks, maybe got a shaved head and wears, jewelry with skulls, and you think that they're so tough, they're looking at your comments saying, like, what did I do to deserve this? Or you like you said, sometimes we focus on that one negative comment, and that's everybody. Mind you, we've learned to deal with it. Believe me, we have tough skin, but just go watch what you love, tell them you love it, and stop. People are so into hating and looking at negativity. It's I don't know. Have we been conditioned? Are we better divided for the, then now I'm going to go into something else, but
no, I think I'm thinking as you're talking, it is the whole darn social media privilege, right? That it's marketing, but it's allowed. Like, no longer are the days of us standing in line at Ticketmaster with our lawn chairs and getting the hard copy tickets and those different things. No more are the days where, you find the fan club. Yeah, I'm dating myself, but no longer are the days that you go to their website or whatever to get their snail mail.
Or so fan mail, yeah.
So you can get their 8x10 copy of their pictures, so they can sign it to you with a stamped self-addressed envelope to go back to you. Like that's how it used to be.
Yeah.
And now there's social media that has just evolved. I mean, my God, there's patty whack, TikTok, so whatever, like we can't keep up, but it's almost like, you get the blue tick, and then it's almost like it gives people permission, they feel, to comment, forgetting that they're human beings back there.
Yeah. And it's time. Maybe people are frustrated. Like it's a tough time in the world, right? It's getting tougher and tougher, and maybe people need that outlet to, when they're angry, to tell people that I don't like you, or I don't like this. It's like, you would never tell them to their face. Then if you maybe that's a good way of looking at it. If you wouldn't tell them to their face, then don't tell them at all. I've had negative comments, and I just, you ignore it, and I'm like, then don't listen. Like,
that I manage social media for some comedians and entertainers, so I'm the first line of defense.
Yeah.
So I will filter those to protect the artist or the entertainer from that, knowing again that they have their own issues or challenges and anxiety, that they don't need to be subjected to that. So you and I are going to make a plea right now that the human beings need to treat the entertainers as human beings and stop that. It's their job. It's what they do. It's a persona, and your reality or your perception of whoever you think you're writing to is not the reality. So they need to stop it.
And you mentioned it earlier, if you talk to any person, be kind, mental health, they're, hashtag whatever, let's talk, to, hashtag let's, mental awareness, mental health awareness. Everyone's on board doing the right thing on social media, putting these hashtags, but then they're the same people who are like, you suck, or, you should go back home and, whatever, try a different job. Like, whether it's you're commenting on a sports figure, you stink, trade him. There's so much negativity. And I guess people look at it and think, oh, it's just people talking. No, like, you got to look at it, all this, and see it, even with what's happening in the world with music. Like, it's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm hopeful that we could live in this perfect world. I know it'll never be perfect, but, like, we're such hypocrites we're such hypocrites.
I'm hopeful too. So what I like to do is, I may not be able to change the whole world globally, but what I can do is control my internal one within it.
Yes.
And that's having amazing, wonderful friends like you. And you have also turned around and introduced me to another sister friend of mine that I have now. I mean, her and I were just talking, and we're actually going to get together. Miss Thea. Yeah, I'm going to name drop Miss Thea Austin from Snap. Thank you very much.
I'm so glad you came that day.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to control my circle and then hope that it's going to be a pay it forward, because what will happen is, collectively within our own little bubble, we make a difference and we matter to each other. And that's really all that matters, is focusing on quality instead of quantity.
And that's true. And, you know, control your bubble, everybody out there, you know, like, make your bubble happy. I wish that for everybody, even for me, as much as sometimes my bubble involves strangers and I try to make them happy, you know, when I'm in a show. But I think, you know, Shannon, you said you're only going to, you can only control your bubble. But I'm telling you, with this show, you know, a bit at a time, I think you'll be changing more than just your bubble. I think you're doing an amazing job.
I love you for that. Thank you. That's the hope. One person at a time, pay it forward and inspire. Really. Thank you. So on that note, in the next few minutes left, I want to play a clip of something that you posted. May I do that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Enjoy this show, everyone. This is something that Frank put together, and, well, it doesn't even need a intro or description. Here we go.
Yeah, have fun.
Open up another bottle. Bella profumo, però, This year come out good.
Oh, Frankie.
Beautiful. Number one, the top one. Taste the sabor.
You dance?
This one you're gonna sell in a store, right? I was gonna go to the work, but I drink the wine. I was gonna go and punch the clock, but I drink the wine. Now I got no paycheck, and I know why. Hey, hey.
Nice dance moves.
I was gonna play the lotto, but I drink the wine.
Come on, y'all. Check it out.
I play the same number every week, but I drink the wine. Now I lose a jackpot, and I know why. I was gonna go to the church, but I drink the wine. Go catch one a free piece of bread, but I drink the wine. Now I'm gonna go to hell, I know why. In bed. I was gonna make a pee-pee, but I drink the wine. But I can't walk to the washroom, cause I drink the wine. Now I make a pee-pee pants, and I'm in the wine. Oh my God. I supposed to take the pill, but I drink the wine.
I'm serious, man.
The doctor said take wine every day, but I drink the wine. Oh, what's the matter? Now my pressure is too high, and I know why. Goddamn. I was gonna make a love to you, but I drink the wine.
Say what? Say what?
I was gonna eat you too, but I drink it. What? What's the matter? I was gonna eat a sandwich. Make me a sandwich. You guys all do the pigs. I am really drunk cause I drink the wine. I'm drunk like a skunk cause I drink the wine. I can't even make one, and I know why. Oh. Not again. What's the matter? Again, I was gonna say express. I can't make one a cap. You younger punk generation from 2000 world. You don't understand nothing. always think about the things worse and worse. I'm a man now, you know why? Because I'm really drunk.
Why, man?
Because I drink the wine. Drinking the wine. I drink the wine. Leave me alone now. Get out of the house. Get out of here. Now I'm going. Why you laugh?
Yeah. So that was a parody. And I did here's the funny thing. I did that song a few years ago as an audio clip. And then my friend who I've been doing a lot of clips with lately, Cosmo Tucci, who's a really talented young guy, he said, Frank, we got to make a video for that. And we did it. And it was like, you know, it was Afro Man, that old song, you know, I was gonna, but then I got high. And then I said, well, what would an Italian man do? He would get drunk and drink it. So all the things that an Italian man wouldn't or couldn't do because he drank too much wine. And that's how that came about. It was fun.
I have seen it several times. I know thank you for sending it to me because I saw it and I was literally like peeing like in your thing. It was so funny. I was crying. I'm still crying. Oh, you are a doll. I love you tremendously. Clearly that choreography was from your wife. Good job, Natalie.
Yeah. And you see that twerk there. My back's been a little stiff. There was no movement there. It was all knees.
Frank, thank you again so much for honoring us and for making a difference and for sharing your personal story. And you know, I appreciate you very much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. So to everybody, make sure that you go to frankspadone.com for more information. And, you know, if you are having any challenges with mental health or anything that you're experiencing in your life, make sure that you reach out to somebody that you know, love, and trust. But most importantly, remember that you matter. And if something doesn't feel right or something feels off, make sure that you go to the experts and make sure that you get yourself taken care of. So I'm Shana Miri. Thank you so much for tuning in to Inspiring Change, where we want to take everyday adversity and turn it into opportunities. So again, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Take care and talk to you next time.